Hey guys, I don't know if you saw the debate between Ken Ham and Bill Nye a couple of months ago. I was thinking about doing a review about it, but there's nothing that needs to be said that hasn't been said, except for this one thing. Because everybody falls along these bias lines. You know, all the atheists say, oh, this is how bad Ken Ham was, and this is how he messed up. And the Christians say, oh, look at Bill Nye, how he goofed here. And nobody ever attacks the person that they disagree with. I value rationality and logic over my team, and so I can and will say something that Bill Nye did that was stupid, and it's not really his fault because Richard Dawkins has used the same argument. I think Jerry Coyne, I read him say the same thing. Many people, I hear atheists bring this argument up all the time, and they're wrong. It's a bad argument. So I know I'm an atheist and I'm airing our bad laundry, but I want it cleaned. I want this argument replaced with something far more rational. So the argument was in response to what would it take to change your mind. First, let's bash Ken Ham a little so you atheists can get your dopamine boost. He said, I'm going to quote it here. No one's ever going to convince me that the word of God is not true. Basically, he said, I'm closed-minded, I'm stubborn, I'm unreasonable. Nothing's going to change my mind. And most of us know right off the top of our heads why that's bad. Number one, why are you in a debate then presenting evidence if the evidence doesn't matter? Obviously, no piece of evidence is going to change your mind. Why do you expect the evidence that you're presenting to change your opponent's mind? Why do you think it's fair for you to have this point of view and for him to have to come to your side? It's just so bad. But here's the thing. In response to that same question, Bill Nye gave. You all know the argument. Here's how Bill Nye put it. We would need just one piece of evidence. We would need the fossil that slants just one way or the other, etc. I'm not going to give his whole quote, but he listed all these things that are true according to science, and if they weren't, they would change his mind. Wrong. Not true. And even if it was true, it would be an irrational view to take. And let me explain why. We have such evidence. We have the fossils that are out of place. If you've ever talked to a creationist, you've probably heard examples of these, such as the La Brea tar pits. We found bones in them of saber-toothed tigers, and they were carbon dated and found to be 40,000 years old. Now, any of you who know anything about carbon dating would know that that's an idiotic thing to do. Carbon dating doesn't have a long enough half-life to measure something that would be as old as a saber-toothed tiger. And so you would probably come to the same conclusion that the scientists who found this did, that there was contamination. Because there are all sorts of ways that things get contaminated due to carbon dating. For instance, if they were just left out in the open air and dust landed on them, dust is mostly made up of human skin cells, and those skin cells would presumably contain carbon-14 that's new and fresh and hasn't decayed yet, and that would throw your findings off. I mean, 40,000 years old, we're talking about trace elements. So we have answers for this, but it doesn't matter if it's logical and reasonable. They've still presented the evidence that you said would change your mind. We would drop evolution based on that. And that's not true. Anytime they bring us any sort of evidence, we'd find what was wrong with it. So our minds wouldn't change. You're dishonest about that. You'll be shown to be two-faced every time somebody presents one of these examples. But here's the thing. They shouldn't change your mind. You shouldn't hold that up as your standard. Because most of us come to beliefs based on the weight of evidence, or at least I should say reasonable, rational people come to conclusions based on which side has more weight, which has the stronger evidence. You wouldn't throw away all this evidence for evolution just because one thing didn't fit. Let me give you an even better example than the saber-toothed tigers. A Quality of Soup video used this throwaway example of a Paleozoic panda, and I like it because it's alliterative and it's kind of fun to say. Let's say that we found a Paleozoic panda, and I mean it's not just something that if you measure it one way incorrectly, it comes out to be from Paleozoic. No, we have all these converging modes of evidence that tell us this modern panda was found in the Paleozoic age. It is ancient. would the newspapers read the next day, scientists now disbelieve evolution? Or would it say something like, time traveling panda found? I mean, that's probably an absurd alternative, but it makes far more sense than the idea that all this evidence for evolution was leading nowhere, that didn't have a coherent narrative. I mean, we could just believe in evolution somewhere down the line. Somebody might come up with a better theory that explains all the facts that we know and then some. And that is typically how scientific theories get replaced. But creationism doesn't do that. It attempts to make it sound like the evidence we have is non evidence, or it's been faked or staged, or we did something wrong. And that is never going to become the new paradigm. Sorry, creationists, you have to do better than that. And unfortunately, so do you atheists. Take care.